Hello everyone, we are back with Splitgate news once again already. The other day I made a video about Splitgate 1 and how the developers have managed to successfully transition that game over from dedicated servers to peer-to-peer networking, ensure that it can live on and people can host servers themselves and play with each other forever. And now the devs have announced that Splitgate 2 will have its first public playtest for the reimagining, the revamp, the re-release. The playtest will take place on Friday, the 29th of August at 3 PM to 6 PM PST, and then there'll be a second one on Saturday, the 30th at 10 AM to 1 PM PST. So two separate slots of time. I assume this is so that both EU and US people can play, and two separate days in case people have work and other commitments on one of the days. This playtest is obviously going to feature various changes that the Splitgate devs have implemented over the past couple of months based on feedback they received from the players. And the first one is a pretty big one. It's regarding the factions. Now obviously a lot of people fed back that they didn't feel like factions belong in the game. That entire aspect of the game divided many people, as it was vastly different from Splitgate 1's standard arena shooter, find weapons on the map, run and gun style, and many people didn't like the fact that certain weapons and abilities and equipment were locked behind certain factions. So what the Splitgate devs have done for this playtest is actually something that I recommended. I said that I'd be on board with this in their feedback survey they did months ago, and many other people did as well. They've removed factions. I made a video on this a few months ago, thinking that they would do this, and it's exactly what they've done. A lot of people didn't like them, and a lot of people are tired of games that are class-based / hero-based shooters that have a class, faction system. So I think we could have anticipated this, and I do think it's a good decision to make. It makes the game more like Splitgate 1 instantly, which is what they're aiming to do, is go back to their roots and go back to what got them here in the first place. So what will happen now is the cosmetics aren't locked behind a faction, and also the weapons and equipment aren't locked behind a faction either. The faction appearances are purely cosmetic, and the weapons and things are now based on a loadout system. So still loadouts, but you can pick anything you want from the entire game's arsenal. Additionally, everyone now gets 3 perk slots. Before it was 2, but now if you wanted to, for example, run the eye for equipment, the firewall, and the killer equipment perks, you can do that. And finally here, faction abilities, such as the Aero Speed Dash or Meridian's Hypersight, or Zabrask's Wall. They're gone. They are completely erased from the game as well. The devs got feedback that those were quite annoying to deal with in general and didn't really add much to the game other than frustration. And it felt like they were kind of a, if I activate this, I win button, and didn't require much skill, which is ultimately what they want Splitgate to be. So no more factions, no more abilities. The next thing is about round-based modes. Obviously, people fed back they didn't like the fact that certain game modes were round-based, rather than simply time limit and score to win based. Now, there are still going to be some round-based game modes within Splitgate 2, however, those that you would expect to be time to win or score to win are going back to that traditional method. Things like your team deathmatch, domination, king of the hill. The next thing is something that isn't going to be present in playtest number 1, but should be present in future playtests, as it's something the devs have 100% committed themselves to, and that is a match composer, a playlist selector. So if you only want to play Split Ball, Hot Zone, and TDM, you can select those modes and search in matchmaking, and you don't have to worry about playing something you might not want to play, such as domination or any free-for-all modes, snipers, SWAT, you get the idea. It's going to be exactly how Splitgate 1 works. Speaking of game modes really quickly, Split Ball has a change, and it's pretty major. It's that the player who's holding the ball won't be able to use portals anymore. So much like when you pick up the split stream, you can't use your portals, picking up the ball in Split Ball will result in the same thing. This was done mainly because the players often found that portals were very much abused in Split Ball. You could get from point A to B in 3 seconds, and by point A to B, I mean your base to the enemy base and then back again. You could literally capture a ball in like 4 to 5 seconds if you were an experienced player, and there's not many ways to defend against that. I think this is a good change. If I recall, the way that CTF ended in Splitgate 1 was that the flag carrier couldn't use portals either, and that just made it much more of like a team-oriented mode. Like, you'd recognize that a teammate has picked up a flag, or in this case now it will be a split ball. You would have to actively watch out and defend them and keep track of where they are, and use your portals to get behind the enemy and provide cover, or even using your teammates' portals. You yourself can't portal, but if your teammate puts them down, you could go through those. Speaking of portals, in general, more portal walls have been added to maps, but this doesn't mean they were just slapped all over the place. They've been placed in positions that people have asked for, such as more portals on the ground or in the sky, or floating portals. Ones that can create new lines of sight and new ways to traverse the map. Things that can create meaningful plays, not just slapping them everywhere for the sake of having more. The next thing that will be changed is time to kill. Weapons will now take longer to kill opponents on a general level, but not by much. We're talking like an extra shot for a carbine, for example, or maybe an extra 4 or 5 bullets for an assault rifle. The reason for this is because players felt like whoever got the first shot off during engagement would ultimately win that engagement most of the time, so increasing the time to kill a little bit should provide more chance to outplay your opponent, to outsmart them. Maybe you'll have more time to portal away and attack from a different direction, or maybe you'll just have more time to spin around and get critical hits, get headshots, whereas your opponent might not be able to do that, might not be as skilled as you with their gun skill, and therefore you would win that engagement. But when the time to kill is so low, you don't really have that chance to react and figure out how you want to like engage with that opponent, whereas now with this change, you should have more time to think about what you want to do. And the final thing that the devs have changed is recoil patterns, and recoil just across the board. In general, there's going to be less recoil, and the recoil patterns make much more sense. Typically in a game, when you shoot, especially with an automatic, you expect your weapon to slowly move upwards. Well, in the current build that we're playing of Splitgate 2, your weapon actually moves upwards and down, which really confuses some players and it feels very weird. The good news now is that in the playtest, weapon recoil will only move in an upwards direction. What this means is that recoil is simply going to be easier to control. If you know that it's always going up in an upwards direction, then for example if using a controller, you just have to hold ever so slightly downwards on that right stick and you would be able to like negate that recoil and keep it steady. Obviously on a mouse and keyboard you'd be moving your mouse ever so slightly down to combat the recoil, so I think that's a good change as well. All of these are good changes. I don't hate any of these. I think they're all the right changes. They were all things that have been very prominent in the community, things that I've seen on Twitter, that I've seen people complain about in the game chats, in the Discord, on Reddit. Other people have made videos about these things. So yeah, this all makes sense. It proves that devs are listening to the feedback, and I think that all of these changes will be happily like accepted by everyone. I can't see any of these being like unanimously declined. As for how you enter, this might be like new to some people. The Splitgate 2 playtest will be using the same Splitgate 2 app that you have on Steam, but it will use a different branch. So how you access different branches is that you would right click and go into the game's properties, and from there there's a beta testing tab and you can enter a code, and once that's entered you will switch over to the different branch. You'll notice there that I said Steam. That's because the playtest is only on Steam, sadly. It's just much easier to do playtesting on Steam. I don't believe there's a way to do a playtest on consoles when a game has already been released. So that is basically why. The only way to do it on consoles would be to update the main build. And I guess they didn't want to do that, so they opted to go for Steam only. And that's it. That's everything that's changed, and that's how you participate and the dates that it will be running. As I said, I think all these are good changes. Looking forward to be playing it. I will definitely test it and provide feedback and make videos on it. You're allowed to record and stream it, so that's nice. And I'll give you my thoughts on it after I've played. And that's all. Thank you for watching this video. Nice to be able to provide some Splitgate 2 news once again, and hopefully start making somewhat regular content on Splitgate 2 again on the channel. And I really hope it does well. As we all know, previously when it launched, I was saying it was the best shooter I've played in years. So I'm hoping, praying for the success. That's all. Thanks for watching this one. Quick plug at the end for 10 seconds. I released my video game called Cross Planet on Steam a few days ago. It is also in somewhat of a beta stage. It's unfinished, but if you want to download it and test it out against bots or real players, you can do that. Just create a lobby and either add bots or tell players to join, and you can play around with what we made over the past couple of years and provide some feedback for that too. Okay, thank you for watching and goodbye.